Well, this story begins in the year 1944, when the father of Prince Cyan and Prince T'Chaka, the Black Panther, King Azzuri of the powerful but hidden African nation of Wakanda, declared a no-fly zone over his territory, which pissed off certain powerful people in Washington, D.C., who decided to send in Mr. Captain America himself, Steve Rogers, to teach those spear-chucking jungle monkeys who's in charge around this biatch. So Cap was deployed to Wakanda during World War II on a search and destroy mission, while also hunting filthy stinking Nazis who were out to beat America and exploiting Wakandan science, not knowing the Wakandans had already beheaded the first wave of Nazi farts by purging their heads from their bodies, while King Azzuri next beat the star-spangled snot out of Captain America and broke his foot off in America's ass while turning Steve's skin color into red, white, and blue bruises for not minding his business. Nevertheless, Cap later proved to be a good guy, only following orders from his punk-ass superiors in the White House. But luckily, he, along with the elite American team known as the Howling Commandos, were sometimes like rebellious children towards their unethical fathers and fought on the side of what was morally right, like aiding Wakanda take down a regiment of attacking Nazi parasites and then a bunch of super soldier Nazi fascists that were extremely dangerous, while having some of the most ridiculous nicknames in comics history, like Master Man, Armless Tiger Man, and Warrior Woman, all led by their general, the disfigured rotten cherry-faced Red Skull, who was with his allies Baron Strucker and the Jabari chieftain M'Baku, as Red Skull's endgame was to conquer Wakanda, enslave their people, and mine their sacred vibranium for the German Empire. Unfortunately, too bad for them, it was all a dream that you could only read in a fictional magazine. So as time progressed, after both King Azzuri's sons' reigns as kings came and went, his grandson, King T'Challa, would be the new Black Panther. So when T'Challa first met Steve, it was because his country was being invaded by what would be later revealed as an imposter Baron Zemo. So T'Challa flew out Steve to Wakanda in 15 minutes from New York in a personal Magna ship that glides automatically on pre-programmed magnetic waves. Nevertheless, Steve wasn't feeling the vibe when he landed and started attacking T'Challa and his men off rip, thinking it was all a setup, when in actuality it was only a test to make sure Steve was the real deal Holyfield, which unsurprisingly he was, ladies and gentlemen, but not quick enough to take down the Panther, before our two heroes later joined forces to take on a troop of foreign mercenaries dressed in uniform, who were armed with rocket rifles, stun bolts, hypno light missiles, and an orbital solar heat projector their leader was operating, until they were inevitably defeated, along with some fool calling himself the Destructon, which was your standard muscle head supervillain with little brain cells. Meanwhile, the troops disappointingly found out they were actually being led by a wannabe supervillain on a conquest to conquer the world. Thereafter, Cap would vouch for the Panther to be on the Avengers roster, which would be unsurprisingly approved, while T'Challa used that opportunity to secretly spy on them. So years later, T'Challa would gift Steve with a brand new vibranium shield, after his other one was confiscated by the government when he defected, no longer wanted to be Captain America, but still was going by Cap, while wearing a mostly new black costume he received from Demolition Man Dennis Dunphy. So after more years went by, a day would come when they, along with other superheroes, were injected with alien nanites to be drugged so they could become indifferent to everything except a contest to the death they were involuntarily put in by beings from outer space as participants in the second Contest of Champions, that this time was hosted by the Brood Queen Imperatrix, whose plans were to absorb the powers of the strongest winning heroes for her brood embryos in order to prepare for a new invasion of Earth. So T'Challa, who just got done defeating the whole New Warriors team by himself, was next put against Captain America in Cap's first matchup, as both heroes were still unable to process the anomalies in the situation facing them. However, T'Challa felt Cap was holding back, while Cap felt T'Challa's timing with his strikes were unusually off, appearing as if T'Challa was fighting with himself to not attack Cap, which Cap grasped that opportunity to defeat T'Challa, so he could try and get to the bottom of what was really going on. So in conclusion, all our abducted heroes inevitably came together to stop and defeat the Brood Queen and her minions before her plans could come to fruition. Succeeding this, when the world was rocked by the superhuman civil war in the United States, T'Challa, along with his wife Aurora Monroe, famously known as Storm, was unintentionally drawn into the conflict after embarking on a diplomatic tour. So T'Challa decided to try and talk to a now paranoid Captain America, who was wanted by the law after going against the Superhuman Registration Act and refusing to comply with the new law. However, Cap, who felt threatened by the appearance of the Black Panther, immediately attacked him in a brief bout where Cap swung on him, thinking he might be an imposter trying to trick him, until he realized otherwise. So the next day, in a more competitive match, during a training session, the Black Panther would get his get back and show Cap he could crush his head like a grapefruit if he wanted to. However, Cap, who was still healing from a prior injury, keyword, responded that wouldn't happen if they were in a real fight, which would take us down the road more years later, when T'Challa was shockingly on the verge of being exiled from Wakanda after one of his global network of sleeper agents named Jai had jeopardized the safety of Wakanda, which almost started a civil war and a series of unfortunate events for T'Challa, who next got kicked out the Avengers, where he was the active leader after losing their trust when he revealed his secret records of the team was compromised by Jai, who used the contingency plan to defeat them. So when T'Challa later wanted to make good the wrongs he did by stopping Jai, Cap felt he already did enough damage and needed to let the Avengers handle it instead, or else he'll be forced to put T'Challa down, which unsurprisingly T'Challa, who was still healing from a prior injury, keyword, wasn't having it. So a fight broke out between the 6 foot 200 pounds of muscle, the patient, persevering, and strong-willed Black Panther T'Challa against the 6 foot 2, 240 pounds of muscle, the honest, upfront, loyal, extremely noble, and unfailingly dependable, man out of time, Captain America Steve Rogers, who went too far when trying to stop T'Challa. However, suddenly, it was interrupted by Namor Mackenzie, the King of Atlantis, and his army, to aid the fallen king in more important matters that concern Wakanda.
I could do this all day. I don't care.